This is the Realty Classroom Podcast, episode number 204. Expand even if you don't want to. Are you a real estate agent who wants to turn your job into a business without sacrificing your lifestyle, but you just can't seem to find the right plan or any plan to help you get there? Well, then, hey, you are definitely in the right place. I'm Danny Griffin, the founder of the Realty Classroom and the host of this podcast. Now, to help you take immediate action to get started in the right direction, I've created a free jumpstart course that's waiting for you at freeagentgift.com. All right, let's get started. Expand even if you don't want to. And I know that drives you crazy if you're just sitting there saying to yourself, but expanding causes me all this anxiety. Take it from a guy who has to expand his business all the time and keep himself under that sort of pressure. I coach top producers, and that's the main push, is to try to get them to expand into better, bigger systems, hiring people, growing a business. It just is what it is. Expansion causes anxiety because we're just simply comfortable. That's what it is. Even if it's not enough, even if what you're doing is not enough, it's not enough business, it's not enough profit, it's not enough satisfaction, whatever it might be, we're still comfortable. And the animal brain says, you're doing fine. I know we're just barely surviving and the business is just barely making it. But human beings have an unbelievable, uncanny ability to make ends meet. We do. And it doesn't feel like it because maybe we're carrying some debt, or maybe, every week you're stressed out about cash flow and your savings dwindles, whatever it might be. But the animal brain has an unbelievable capacity to know exactly how much work it needs to do just to survive. So when you wake it up and you challenge it and say, hey, look, we've had enough of this survival thing. We want to get a little bit beyond that, at least, if not into thriving. Well, that causes anxiety. Because the anxiety in your animal brain that's trying to run this business starts to see a lot of extra calories that are being burnt that go beyond just trying to eat. So there's a conflict. And I've come to realize that simple concept is really important for me to understand and to share with you. That's what happens to us. And especially if you've had some good success, and I've had some great success, I would say. I'm grateful for the success that I've had in this business. I'm grateful for the success that my clients have had in this business. But we're all still under a lot of anxiety all the time, because as you're being successful, there's always the shadow. So I talk about the shadow. The shadow's coming from somewhere. It's going to overwhelm what you're doing today. Happiness is a temporary visitor to us in our businesses because something's going to go wrong. So Murphy's Law is just life. If something can go wrong, it will go wrong. Well, that's life, and it happens. So your success is always in direct proportion to the number of problems you're solving. So expansion is trying to get out in front of the inevitable anyway. Let that sink in, right? Because the second point here is that expansion is nothing but a push to a bigger or / better goal. So when I think about my business and I share it anecdotally with you, I look back and I say, the story of my early business as I began to expand was chasing after leads. The minute I knew lead generation was a thing and marketing was a thing and you could do those things to expand your business, I did them. I don't know that I did enough strategic thinking. Well, I know I did not do enough strategic thinking about how the business actually works. So when I was taught something, that was what was in front of me. And so I did that thing to expand. I was very tactical. So when I was taught lead generation, and especially as the digital age came on, lead generation online, it was there to get buyers. And so I figured the way to expansion was a bigger goal. And to a large extent, it worked. If I just went out and got those leads, and I spent a lot of time and hired people to help me on the phones, making phone calls, we could expand. We could do more business, and we did. So there was benefit in that. It was always a bigger goal. Now, the interesting thing about expansion early on, when you're pushing yourself and you're probably being more resourceful with your blood, sweat, and tears, meaning you're just your muscle, your energy, you're working harder just to get a bigger goal, mostly by yourself, trying to be frugal with the money that you spend to do so, but at least hard work is something that you can put in based on your energy. And what it does when you start to expand it introduces you to concepts and ideas and things you didn't think about previously when you were a smaller version of yourself. So what does that mean? That means as I started to do business with buyers I didn't know versus just referred people or people that were in my quote unquote sphere of influence, I started to realize what was important to them. And in all the previous business, there was relationships. So it was just what was important to them had already been expressed pretty easily. But when you go out and you're involved in lead generation and you're expanding into that, you're learning how to attract people to do business with you that don't know you, and you realize that you need a unique selling proposition. You need something that really is unique because you referred business is coming in on relationship. Most of those people just know, like, and trust you either directly because they know you already or they've been referred by a friend. So there's less burden on you to figure it out per se. So that was a great benefit of expanding towards the bigger goal of learning how to do business with people I didn't know, because I wanted to make more money. I had obligations to my family. I needed to make more money. So I had to expand in that case. But then it became more intelligent expansion. As I started to get more strategic, I said, okay, so just muscling your way to more has some benefits. It educated you, but what it did was open your eyes to say, well, wait a minute. You've drifted very quickly only into a primarily buy-side business. And not that I hadn't expanded into the sell side, but strategically, my sell side philosophy cost a lot of money. It was too broad spread across a huge region versus being a targeted expansion with marketing. So all of those lessons were being learned, and I was able to really refine them. That's the key word here. Expansion at first can be sloppy and can be big and it can be all over the place. You don't want to spend a lot of money just blindly. Don't do that. But I mean, just push with that energy and try to do things maybe 2 times harder than you do. Meaning if you do an open house for an hour a week, do it for 2 hours a week. Do it for 2 days a weekend, whatever it might be. Continue to expand in doing basic things like that because it just gives you more exposure. Look, there's no rocket science. The people that work the most make more distinctions faster, assuming we assume that they both start off with similar intelligence, right? So you're just learning more. But I want to go back a little bit to you. And I think to myself, my gosh, and I have every good excuse to shrink back into comfortable because I have now empty nester with my wife, but we raised 5 kids on top of trying to create this business and expand it. So here's this family expanding out of control, and we have this business that I'm trying to expand at the same time. So that sounds like, oh my gosh, how could I ever do that? So see, there's the problem. It's more so, we go back to that animal brain where you don't believe you have capacity to expand. And I mean in any sense of the word. I could mean the energy. I could mean the financial resources. I could mean the intelligence. You just don't think it's for you. That's not for me. I'm comfortable where I'm at. And that's an acquiescence, and it's a quit to a certain extent. I think it's great if you're comfortable and you're happy, and that's fine. But I warn you about those things. Happiness is a temporary visitor, and your business can be taken away from you by circumstances in a second, because if you're not expanding, you're definitely contracting in some sense, at least when things get tougher. So you have more capacity than you think you do. And we can point to a number of people in society in different businesses. We just look at them as, how do they get all that done? Where do they get the resources? And they don't have anything different than we do. It's just that they have put their energy into learning more faster. And again, some of them, I don't want to start mentioning names of great entrepreneurs. You can pick a few that you like. Something might give in another part of their life. You can say, yes, but their family's a disaster. Okay, that's legitimate. But let's just say that your family life and your personal life is in some semblance of order. And we get back to your business life and you say, but I just don't have the time. Well, you do. You have a lot more capacity than you think. And so I remember when I was starting this Realty classroom endeavor, and I had branched out on my own from the coaching company I was involved in before. And I knew that there was something wrong with the systematic approach I was using, and it was off, and it wasn't translating into a modern business. And I knew that was going to take a lot of work. I mean, I'm telling you, I literally sat there and said to myself, this could take about 10 years worth of work to figure this out, given what else I have going on and given the fact that, 10 years is about a reasonable amount of time that it takes for somebody to figure out a business, or at least the major machinations of that, the machinery. How does it actually work? And I'm thinking back to the day, it's probably this fall as I'm recording this, and you'll see when it's posted, it's pretty close to 10 years. And when I look back, I say to myself, wow, I didn't think I had the capacity, because my oldest at the time, 10 years ago, would have been about 16. And then there was a 14-year-old. And then behind that was 10 and twice at 8, right? That's the lineup I had. So that's the thick of trying to be a good parent, as well as trying to say, I'm going to need more energy to do this. But I took it on. And what happened was things did give. I did, in order to expand, being a good father and teacher to my kids, and being a good steward to my coaching members, things gave. I had to give up a lot of social activities or extra activities that I liked or I wanted to be involved in, and they just gave, because this body of work was extremely important to me to feel self-fulfilled when I look back. And I'm thrilled I did it, and I would do it again. I mean, you always wish you knew what you didn't know at the time, because you could expedite or speed up the learning in the organization, but I didn't. So that's part of the journey. But I'll implore you to do this, and this is the final point here today. So I'm telling you, we all have more capacity. I've experienced it myself, and yet I'm doing it again, by the way. I'm pushing myself into a national/international expansion mode to try to take what I put in place over the last 10 years to help many other real estate agents in a formal capacity with my brokerage, The Griffin, so that they can help a lot more sellers and buyers with our unique selling proposition. Let's call it the Griffin method, the TRC method, right? So we're trying to bring that to people. And so I'm pushing yet again. So I'm not resting on the laurels of the 10 years of discovery and organization. There's still always refinements that will go on forever, but there are big rocks in the jar. So we need to bring that to a bigger public audience to serve more people, because that is my ultimate goal. I just have a calling to be a person for others in the greatest capacity I can and to take on the maximum amount of responsibility. So I'm all about expansion of my personal limits, because there are no such things, right? But I would say this. Here's the key little tip from this podcast. If you feel like I'm not speaking to you, or this is beyond your capacity and your capability, here's what I would challenge you to do. Why don't you just listen to this and start by measuring your capacity to procrastinate? Let that sink in for a second. I'm going to say that again. What I would do, if this podcast challenges you, motivates you, this one in particular about expansion, do it even if you don't want to. When you're throwing that inner animal tantrum that it's going to take too many calories or you don't have the resources, whatever they might be, I would say, well, why don't you start by measuring your capacity to procrastinate? Because that too takes resources. That too takes energy. That too takes time. And we have these phones that are unbelievably powerful, and we have a choice on what we do with them. Do we use them to learn how to expand our business? Do we listen to podcasts expanding our mind? Or are we brainlessly scrolling up? And look, it happens to me. I can sit there on YouTube, or I can sit there on Instagram particularly, or TikTok. It's just scrolling, right? And you make that excuse because that's your animal brain saying, oh, but there's always time to procrastinate. Just, do something brain numbing and do something that just relaxes you. Okay, that's fine. But it's in lieu of something else. And that's probably expanding your business or your personal capacity to just think. And I think that's where you have to start. And be honest with yourself about that. So let me go back and summarize this. The challenge to you today, all you real estate agents out there, I don't care where you're at. If you're just getting your real estate license or you've had it for a while, it doesn't matter. I want you to think about expanding even if you don't want to. It's a very necessary thing. You are either expanding or contracting. And here are the key points. Let's just recognize, number one, that expanding or thinking about expanding does cause anxiety because it means you're going to have to become a bigger version of yourself, and that stresses your inner animal brain. 2, expansion is nothing but a push towards a bigger or better goal. That's all it is. So we're goal-oriented organisms, so you have to push in that direction. You have to expand. Otherwise, you're really not fulfilling the desire inside you, and that causes anxiety. Think about that. If you're not moving towards that goal, you're causing your own anxiety. 3, folks, you have more capacity than you think. We're just wired to be much bigger versions of ourselves, but all this anxiety and shrinking, it just keeps happening. The contracting keeps us far away from what we're capable of. But lastly, if you're thinking about this and you're stuck, start by measuring your capacity to procrastinate. You're already spending an enormous amount of time doing that, and that's causing you the time to expand. It's a simple time management trade-off. I'll summarize it by saying, just the thought of expanding a business is enough to scare most real estate agents into running and hiding. I know as a coach, it happens. It's very difficult to imagine spending more time and energy expanding when you don't even feel like what you're doing currently is working. However, expanding is nothing more than moving towards a bigger or better goal, and that's a necessary movement in any business. Furthermore, if you doubt your capacity to spend the energy expanding, then start by measuring how much energy you're already wasting by procrastinating. All right, remember, you can take immediate action and get started in the right direction or a better direction with our free simple business plan over at freeagentgift.com. Freeagentgift.com. It's simple. It's not complex. It's for anyone. And it is actually the wireframe on a one-pager, and then I just do a little walkthrough of each section. It's simple. Anybody can understand it, but even you pros, slow down. I know you're selling a lot of properties. Everything's going just fine. Slow down. It become more strategic. It's what I did, and it made a huge difference in the quality of my life, not just my business. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen. We also post our content on YouTube, so don't forget to subscribe to the Realty Classroom channel. We'd also appreciate it if you would share our content with other real estate agents just like you, and that way everybody gets the help that they need. But remember this, we sign off the same way every time. Nobody's coming for you. Nobody. So go get to work on your business, and we'll see you in the next episode to stimulate you and motivate you to do just that. Thanks for listening.